What's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners here on a beautiful Saturday morning. I've got some more rankings for you talking about our top 20 quarterbacks and top 20 tight ends. Don't forget, these rankings do not include anybody that played already on Thursday night. So when I switch over to quarterbacks, I don't want a bunch of comments saying, "Where's Lamar Jackson?" Lamar Jackson was my quarterback one this week, but I'm not including him because his games are already done with. So don't worry about him. Don't worry about Mark Andrews. Don't worry about Sam Darnold. Nobody else. Don't worry about those guys. They're not going to be included in these. But also a side note as well, these rankings this week, as in basically every other week, but just to clarify a little bit, are based on upside. So when I do my rankings, I typically look at what is the best case scenario, what is the best outcome I see for these players this week. So if you have any questions about why I might have someone a little bit higher, a little bit lower, it's because of their upside this week, which if you face Lamar Jackson already this week, you're going to need as much upside as possible. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about our quarterbacks first, our top 20 quarterbacks, and looking at our Week 15 rankings right now. Deshaun Watson, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Right off the bat, those four at the top. What else can you say about them? Those guys present a tremendous amount of upside every single week, especially Watson. Brees, obviously coming off the huge week last week. Mahomes and Wilson, they haven't been nearly as good the last probably 3 weeks or so. Mahomes has actually looked like a regular human being, a regular quarterback. But with that being said, both of these guys, any day of the week, can absolutely take over. Mahomes against Denver. Denver has been flailing a little bit here at the end of the season against the pass, not playing nearly as well as they did at the beginning of the season. So I definitely expect Mahomes and company to have a decent game there. I'm not worried about Tyreek Hill against Chris Harris or anything like that. Russell Wilson going up against Carolina. Still, he's Russell Wilson, right? He's got more than enough weapons there. I know the ground game could be a big thing this week, so Wilson was almost a couple of spots lower, to be honest with you. I am waiting to hear just a little bit more information, especially on Jameis Winston, to make sure that he is ready to go. And with Jameis Winston, the finger issue this week, he ended up practicing towards the end of the week. He's supposed to be 100% ready to roll. No issues there. Just want to hear those final roster moves come out, those final roster conversations from the teams over the next 24 hours coming out on Twitter, social media, and everything, just to see if there's any notes out of Tampa Bay's camp about whether or not he could end up being a little bit limited or they have any concerns. And then, of course, inactives and things tomorrow afternoon. Not worried about him being inactive. Definitely think he plays. Just if there's any rumblings about whether or not that finger is maybe causing more issues. If not, Wilson could get bumped down a little bit because I think there's a lot of Chris Carson this week. I think they're going to really run the ball a lot against Carolina. Winston has a ton of upside against Detroit. I mean, if he was 100% healthy, quite honestly, he'd probably be my quarterback 3 this week. He'd be above Wilson and Mahomes. But because of that finger, I am just tempering expectations a little bit. Ryan Tannehill coming in after that, going up against Houston. Houston is giving up the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, and Ryan Tannehill continuing to preach him week after week. If he's not a guy that's already owned in your league, then he's a guy that you have to have, but typically at this point, he's already been picked up. He's rostered in quite a few leagues. You're not going to be able to get your hands on him. So if you don't own him, it doesn't matter, but if you do own him, if you don't own any of the guys at the top, not only do I think Ryan Tannehill has a ton of upside this week, but I think he's very safe as well, and that really cements him as the number 6 for me. Jimmy Garoppolo coming in at number 7. Atlanta's defense has been up and down. At one point, they could get slaughtered. At another point, they could look like champions. I mean, they did keep Drew Brees and company down at one point in time. But I'm going to go ahead and roll with them. Right now, the 49ers are it's a team that's rolling. They're looking good. They're playing well. I'm going to go with the hot hand this week. Baker Mayfield at number 8. Again, it's all about upside. The matchup is too good going against Arizona. Lots of upside this week. Josh Allen at number 9. I've got him about 6 spots higher than the expert consensus rankings right now. People are really worried about this game in Pittsburgh. But here's what I got to tell you. At this point, I was probably one of the most vocal about Josh Allen when he came out of the draft. I didn't think he was ready. I wanted to see him go to a team where he could sit. Quite honestly, I thought he would have been perfect for the Patriots. Go sit for the Patriots for 2 or 3 years when Tom Brady is done, then take over. I knew he had the arm talent. I knew he had the explosiveness. I knew he was athletic. But here's the thing. I was worried about him coming in and playing right away and developing in the midst of playing. He's done really well. So as someone that really didn't like Josh Allen coming out of the draft, I've come around to him. He's growing. He looks good. He's got that confidence. He's got some swagger. The Bills have some swagger. I was wrong. I was wrong about Josh Allen. I'm not hating on the guy anymore. But hasn't he done enough this season to earn our respect? Hasn't he done enough this season to be inside the top 12 on a weekly basis because of his legs, because of his arm? Sure, there might be some matchups like this one this week where we can temper expectations, but the guy can get to you in so many ways. He's definitely a quarterback one each and every week, I would have to think. So to see the expert consensus rankings have him almost 6 spots lower than number 9, that kind of shocks me a little bit. I've got him inside the top 12. I'm rolling with him this week. Dak Prescott at number 10. Dak still gets the volume. You saw it last week against Chicago. Even though Chicago was up on Dallas, really wasn't letting up. Dallas, they just kept throwing the ball. A lot of that was due to negative game script. Is that going to happen against the Los Angeles Rams? I do think this game will be a little bit closer. I do think Dallas ends up pulling it out. In Dallas, though, must win for them. They got to stay in the playoff race. They got to keep up. They got to get a win this week against the Rams. I think that they do. Dak's going to be a big part of that. Again, upside. Ryan Fitzpatrick, you don't get a whole lot more upside than Ryan Fitzpatrick, especially against the New York Giants. You get Devontae Parker back. He's going to be playing this week. That's really good news for him. So, yes, I am going to put him inside the top 12. A whole lot of upside this week. Carson Wentz at number 12. He'd actually be a little bit higher for me against Washington. However, he has limited weapons right now. Alshon Jeffrey done for the season. Nelson Aguilar has been banged up. Obviously, Jordan Howard, a big part of the run game at the beginning of the season. He will not be playing again this week. Boston Scott was leaned on a lot last week. I definitely think we see a lot of 2 tight end sets. But even last week, they had to run some 3 tight end sets. They had to get 3 tight ends out on the field because they didn't have enough weapons. That's the only reason I don't have him a little bit higher. Kyler Murray coming in at 13. He just hasn't been as good lately as he was at the beginning of the season. A lot of it was volume-based at the beginning of the season, but it might be wearing on him a little bit at this point. He's really had to try and keep this offense propelled, carry it on his shoulders. David Johnson hasn't done anything this season, so it's really been Kyler Murray trying to carry the load without a whole lot to help him in the backfield. Kenyon Drake, since that trade, has been a little bit better, but at this point, I'm going to start moving him a little bit further down. I'm not really trusting him in the playoffs right now. Jared Goff coming in at number 14 at Dallas. The one reason I've got him a little bit lower is the pass rush. I'm just worried that he's going to have a lot of guys in his face on Sunday. If that ends up happening, that really limits his upside. And again, as I've stated several times in the rankings so far, it's all about upside. If he wasn't facing a defense that had a front that could get to him like this, he would probably end up being a little bit higher for me. But again, I'm worried about that pass rush a little bit this week. Jacoby Brissette coming in at number 15 on the road in New Orleans. Always a tough environment. Jimmy G got it done last week. I think Jacoby Brissette can get it done this week. I got him a little bit lower. Still waiting to hear on T.Y. Hilton at this point. As of this recording, still have not heard for sure if he is going to be in or out this week. If he's in, I would probably jump Jacoby Brissette up above Kyler Murray, put him at number 13. However, I've got to just keep him a little bit limited at this point. I do like him this week. I do have him as a start this week. The New Orleans Saints have given up 4 straight tight end 1 performances to tight ends. They've been giving up quite a bit of points to opposing wide receivers. The matchup is there. So I've got him here at 15, but he can go a little bit higher after I hear about T.Y. Hilton. Number 16, Matt Ryan against San Francisco. Ryan was originally a sit for me, and then after I did my start and sit episode, I heard a lot of rumblings out of some injuries in the 49ers camp, and then all of a sudden we started hearing about some of those injuries coming out a little bit more. So they're going to be a little bit banged up this week, and that is why I've got Matt Ryan at number 16, because I did end up bumping him up. But again, it's San Francisco. Again, worried about the front of the front line, worried about their pass protection. Obviously, they got lit up last week. They're going to be looking to come back out and get some things done this week, but injuries are going to be a concern. That's why Matt Ryan, I've got him here. He could end up being a decent play, maybe a little bit of limited upside because it is San Francisco still, and it's on the road at San Francisco, but still a decent play for you this week. Okay, number 17, Aaron Rodgers. Let me just say something real quick to everybody. If you own Aaron Rodgers and you want to play him, then you play him. Don't even listen to what I'm going to say right now. Don't even listen to it. Okay, I was obviously 100% wrong about Drew Brees last week. Okay? Missed that call completely. I own it. But if we're talking in terms of upside, Aaron Rodgers has very little to no upside this week. And let me explain why. As of right now, the temperatures on Sunday in Green Bay are expected to be around 5 degrees down on the field. 5 degrees. For games since 1965, in which the temperature was below 10 degrees Fahrenheit at the beginning of the game, the average combined score is 39 points, and the average combined turnovers is 5.6. 5.6 turnovers per game. 39 points combined per game. Quarterbacks are averaging just under 2 touchdowns per game, and they're averaging just over 1 interception per game in these type of environments. That's thanks to Pro Football Focus, or excuse me, not Pro Football, Pro Football Reference.com. Got that information from there. The Bears are also averaging under 15 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, the 7th fewest, and they've given up under 14 fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks to opposing quarterbacks. The weather is not going to be great. Aaron Rodgers this season has not been great. Really, Aaron Rodgers right now is propelled by 3 really big performances this season. If it were not for those games, he would likely be outside the top 12 quarterbacks right now. On a points per game basis, he's almost outside of the top 12 quarterbacks right now. Very limited upside this week because of the weather, and that's why I have him this low. But again, I'm providing you stats and information right now, and a reason why I believe Aaron Rodgers is a risky play this week. If you own Aaron Rodgers and your gut is to start Aaron Rodgers, then you start Aaron Rodgers. You don't pay attention to me. This is your team. This is your playoff run. You do whatever feels better, because at the end of the day, if you lose because of you, you're going to feel a lot better than you losing because of me. Okay? So once again, run with it. If you own him, play him. That's all I can tell you about that. If you own him and you're worried about some of the stats that I just threw out, and you have a shot to grab some of these other guys with higher upside, then I would roll that. I would roll that way. Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, Eli Manning finishing out the top 20 here. Brady against Cincinnati. The only reason I don't like him a little bit more is a lot of running. If they get out ahead of Cincinnati early, it could be just a whole lot of running the ball. Kirk Cousins, I think a whole lot of Dalvin Cook this week. And then for Eli Manning, decent matchup. However, he looked good in the first half last week. Basically disappeared in the second half. So I've got him a little bit lower than that this week. Let's go ahead and jump over now to our top 20 tight ends. Rolling with Zach Ertz at number 1 this week. Zach Ertz, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, the 1, 2, 3, the big 3, the guys that if you own them, they are in your lineup every single week. I've got them. However, let's talk about Ian Thomas and Tyler Higbee a little bit. Okay, Ian Thomas, I've got all the way up at number 4 this week. So much information that I'm going to provide to you here in a second as to why Ian Thomas has a ton of upside. And again, these rankings are based on upside. We're not playing it safe this week, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a championship to win. Can't do it unless we score points. We're going to throw out our players that are going to get us the most points this week. Especially for some of you that are playing top seeds that have really, really good players, and you're trying to put together the best lineup possible, put together the best lineup that's going to score the most points. That's what we got to do this week. Ian Thomas coming in at number 4. Last week he had 10 targets, went 5 for 57, and 1 touchdown. Not a bad game whatsoever. I had him a little bit lower in my rankings. I wasn't expecting a huge game, but he ended up playing fairly well. However, he gets Seattle this week. Seattle, over the last 4 weeks, is giving up 24.43 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. That is the most in the National Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, that's more than Arizona. Arizona's been god-awful all season long against the tight end. Seattle's been worse the last 4 weeks. They've given up 33 receptions. That's the most. They've given up 44 targets. That's the most. They've given up 303 yards. That's the second most. Over the last 4 weeks, Seattle has not been able to stop tight ends. And also, last week, on pass plays, Ian Thomas ran a route 85% of the time. He was not being used to block, ladies and gentlemen. He was being used as a weapon in that offense last week. He has a tremendously high ceiling this week. Quite honestly, I could see Ian Thomas going as high as tight end 2 this week over Kittle and Kelce. That's how much upside he has. But if you own those big three, you're not sitting those big three for Ian Thomas. I'm not doing it. However, if you own those three, you don't have a great flex option, and you own Ian Thomas, you can flex Ian Thomas. I have no problems with that. Tyler Higbee at number 5. Over the last couple of weeks, he's been the tight end 1, averaging 17.7 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format. He had 11 targets last week. He's been excellent the last 2 weeks with no Gerald Everett. Also, over the last 2 weeks, he does lead all tight ends in the National Football League in targets and air yards. If you don't know what air yards are, basically how far the ball travels through the air. So Tyler Higbee hasn't been just a target hog the last couple of weeks. He's been a big play guy for the Rams the last couple of weeks. Dallas hasn't been great against the tight end at times this season. They've given up quite a few receptions to the tight end this season. They've given up quite a few points to the tight end this season at different times. So definitely a huge asset this week. They've been using him the last 2 weeks. Expect more Tyler Higbee this week. Darren Waller, Hunter Henry coming in at number 6 and number 7. We love those guys, right? They've been great for us all season long. We're going to continue to roll with them if we have them. I just don't think their ceiling is as high as Ian Thomas and Tyler Higbee this week. The reason Waller I don't have higher is just because David Carr hasn't been great. Jack Doyle at number 8. Obviously, so many injuries there in Indianapolis. Jack Doyle didn't come through for us last week, but before that has been really, really good. Austin Hooper at number 9. He gets a decent look because of Calvin Ridley. No Calvin Ridley this week, so Austin Hooper takes on even a little bit more of a focus. Coming back from his injury wasn't great. Maybe he just needed a game to kind of get the rust off. Okay, that rust is off. He's ready to roll this week. Going to play a lot better, especially with no Calvin Ridley. Jared Cook at number 10. Okay, 2 catches last week, but they both went for touchdowns. Big week for him before leaving with his concussion. Got him at number 10 this week just because I see a couple of the guys ahead of him just with a little bit more upside. Dallas Goedert at number 11. He's a tight end 1 for me this week. Because of the injuries in Philadelphia. Definitely a good volume play this week and touchdown play. Jenna Smith at number 12. Not only Smith at 12, but we got Fells down at 18. This is a matchup where both of these tight ends are seeing a defense that has struggled against tight ends over the last 4 weeks. Right now, Houston is giving up the second most fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks, so a big week for Smith incoming potentially. Tennessee is giving up the 5th most fantasy points per game the last 4 weeks. Fells is a TD upside. That's why he's lower for me, though, is because at times this year, especially last week, Akins gets the volume, Fells gets the touchdowns. If Fells can't combine those two things, he can't go any higher. So we're looking for that touchdown. But if he only gets that touchdown and it's on 1 catch for 5 yards, that's great. But it's not really better than, I can't put him higher than 18 because of that. So that's why he's a little bit lower there. Fant at 13. I had Fant as a sit. I'm changing directions on that now. He is a start. It looks like he's good to go for this Sunday. Keeping an eye on it still just to make sure. However, Noah Fant, going to get him out there this week. He's been a great option. Drew Lock's going to be honing in on him a little bit, especially when you face Kansas City, who hasn't been great against the tight end this week and has been pretty good at stopping the pass towards wide receivers. So could see a lot of Noah Fant. Jacob Hollister, he just hasn't done a whole lot. Since his huge game after the Will Dissly injury, he just hasn't done a whole lot. Upside is limited. Mike Gesicki, I've said it again. I said it last week and I was right, correct? If I start Mike Gesicki, he doesn't do anything. If I sit him, he does something. I started him last week. He didn't do anything. I'm starting him again this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for that type of analysis, then you're sitting Mike Gesicki. I don't know what else to tell you. Dude does the opposite of what I call, so it doesn't matter. David Njoku coming in at number 16. A big touchdown upside against Arizona this week. Again, that volume, though, probably not seeing a whole lot of volume, but touchdown upside. Cameron Brate at number 17. I've got him over O.J. Howard. He's been the preferred target for Jameis Winston for the last several years. He continues to get looks in the red zone. Last week, he saw a decent volume play. I've got him at number 17 with no Mike Evans. Darren Fells talked about him already in his touchdown upside because Tennessee hasn't done well against tight ends the last few weeks. O.J. Howard, the potential's there. Are they going to use him, though? Are you going to risk your fantasy matchup in Week 15 on O.J. Howard after he has shown us time and time again, with the exception of really 1 week, that we can't trust him? Not for me. And then Jason Wynn at number 20 continues to be a trusted target of Dak Prescott, but it's up and down, up and down. One good week, a bad week, back and forth. He can't really be trusted either. Don't really love the upside, though, especially because Gallup, Cooper, and Cobb have been playing so well. At the beginning of the season, when Cobb wasn't really rolling, Wynn was doing a lot better. But because you've got 3 wide receivers and Ezekiel Elliott, Blake Jarwin has been seeing some decent volume here and there. It's hard to trust him. That's why I've got him a little bit lower this week. But ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up my rankings for Week 15. Make sure you tune into the live show tonight, okay? Answering a ton of your start and sit questions, talking about the rankings. If there's any breaking news, anything happens between now and then, we'll obviously cover that, talk a little bit more about the weather. I'll talk more about Aaron Rodgers and why I just don't trust him this week. So if you want to get more feedback on that, talk about it a little bit more, definitely tune into the live show tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube, where we are every single week. Headliner Nation, do me a favor, hit that like button down below, leave a comment if you have a question. I'll get to as many as I can today and tomorrow morning. I'm really going to be focusing on YouTube. I try to go back and forth between Twitter and YouTube. I get so many questions. Jake gets so many questions. It's hard to get to all of you, but we appreciate the questions. Just know that. We read through and we read a lot of the questions. We just don't have time to respond to everybody. So I'm going to try to spend as much time as possible with YouTube tonight and tomorrow to make sure we get a lot of your questions answered. And if you're not a part of Headliner Nation yet, hit that subscribe button. Become a part of Headliner Nation today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you on the live show. Good luck in Week 15, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one, everybody.